there friends, Nibs again. Pretty snowy and cold outside, so we're going to keep it inside. And I'm going to do something a little different for you guys. At least I hope I'm going to get it done anyway. But I've been doing a couple videos on this guy here, this Ruger Mark IV by Umarex. And it seems like it can be pretty accurate, but the one big flaw in this gun right now is the trigger is unbelievably heavy. If I had to guess, I would guess it's probably in the 10 to 11 pound pull weight, and I'm not going to fool myself and think that I can get it down so it's like my bicollar or anything like that, or my wire roushes or anything like that. But if we can get it down to the maybe 4, 5, 6 pound, I think this thing could really be quite a target shooter. When I do really manage my trigger pull on it, I can throw down some pretty decent looking groups. So I'm going to bring you down to the bench top here. This first part of the video, I'm just going to show you how I tear this down. I'm going to get the trigger spring out of there, and then I got to go over to the local farm store anyway, pick up a bag of dog food for the dogs, and while I'm there I'm going to look in their parts bins and see if I can find a similar looking spring that's, or maybe a couple, and see if I can find something that is lighter. I'll pick up a couple that are different weights. I don't want to modify the original one, just because if I go too far with it, then it won't be functional. So we're also going to do a couple other things, Dremel tool with a buffing pad on it, and some jeweler's rouge, and try to buff up the sear a little bit. But those will be in, maybe it'll be a couple of videos in a series or something like that, because I like to ramble, and so things end up getting a little bit long. So let me bring you down to the desktop here, and hopefully I don't get in the way too much here, but I probably won't be using all these tools to disassemble it right now, but to completely disassemble it, these are the ones you'll need. And actually, nice to have a set of jeweler's needle screwdriver files. Sorry. So I got the tape out here because I don't have like a gunsmith block, so to speak, so I use that to set that on to tap on. And stand by 1 second, I forgot to get out my hammer. Alright, got my nice little brass hammer that I made many years ago, a piece of brass rod left over from tool machining. So the things you're going to need to strip this thing down, you'll need a 3mm Allen wrench, a 2.5mm Allen wrench. These are both the same size, but they're a small punch or something of that nature. These are 3/32. You will need a number 0 Phillips head, a number 1 Phillips head, and a number 2 Phillips head. And like I said, a hammer of some sort, plastic hammer, maybe. Eventually we will be using a Dremel tool with some buffing wheel, cotton buffing wheel, or felt buffing wheel, I guess it is. And hopefully we can get this thing down to a little bit more manageable of a trigger. So to start off with, in order to tear this thing down, you have to take the grip panels off. So we're going to pull that. So there's just 2 screws on either side. I'd like to have a cloth down to work on, so things don't go rolling off the bench. It also keeps things from getting scratched up This bench has seen a lot of work over the years, and yeah, that doesn't want to come out of there, so we'll set it over to the side. Flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. So I have had this thing tore down already. I completely field stripped it, and I did try one mod that I saw online already. It did work a little bit. The trigger is still crazy heavy, but what was happening before was it was actually, well, I'll show you when I get it apart, but it felt like, you know, knife edge dragging against metal, and it literally was. So now the next thing we're going to do is, with our number 1 Phillips, there's 2 little Phillips head screws on either side right here in the front. And you take those 2 out. Now the next thing, so there's a bunch of pins in here that we're going to drive out, and you always want to drive them from the right side of the gun towards the left. There's actually a little knurled part on the head of the pin, and if you drive them the other way, you'll strip them out and ruin them. So, but if you drive them out from right to left, they come out pretty easy. So if you notice on that pin, it has a bit of knurling on there, and then it's actually rounded on the other side, so hard to mistake putting it back in. Now this is actually snapped in there pretty good, so you got to give it a good bit of torque to get that to come loose out of there. And now so you can pull this out of the way, and the one mod I've already done, and I'm not going to take this part apart again, but so this is like this is an aluminum, the piston is aluminum, but there's a little tiny piece of steel in there, and that had like a knife edge almost folded over, and it was, I'll show you the sear in a minute, but that was like digging into the sear. And so I pulled that out, and I actually very gently filed that knife edge off, and it did make a pretty significant difference in the feel of the trigger already. So to get that out, you would there's a 2.5mm screw here, Phillips head screw here, and then you have to drive this pin out. I drove it from the top down. I don't know if it can go both ways, but then this is under spring tension, so be very careful. When that comes out, you can get your piston out. So I'm not going to mess with that anymore today, though. Where I'm going today is got your sear here, safety. You got to pull the safety apart. It's not as complicated as it looks, so you got to get your number 0, and there's a little tiny screw right here. Pull that one out, and then the lever for the safety will come off, and then there's another screw here. Got to pull that one out. If you don't pull this second one out, the thing won't come up out of the mechanism. So now flip it back over again, working right to left. Take your punch. There's 1, 2. I don't think you need to take that third one out. I'm going to try it without doing it. If you don't take that one out, you have to work the sear mechanism back in at an angle. But so right to left again. Pull that pin out. Pull that pin out. And actually, when you do that, it comes under a little spring tension because of the sear spring down in here, which is unbelievably heavy. So I believe that's going to really make a big difference when we get to the hardware store and actually find one. So now we're going to start working our, you can see it coming up here. You gotta be careful because down in here the safety mechanism is under spring tension, and it can, there's that piece coming off. That's part of the safety. Now we've got the sear mechanism out. I like to take that off just so it doesn't go flying on me. This is the safety lever that actually, when you flip the safety down, that piece flips in and blocks the trigger from moving. So we'll set this aside. Eventually we're going to be working on, this little tip right here is the actual sear. And it's pretty rough. So I think we can buff that up and make some improvements on the feel of the trigger. But our main goal for this first part of the video is to get this thing far enough apart where I could get this spring out of there. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and cut it off now. I'm going to put that in my pocket, and I'm going to take the dogs and go for a ride over to the farm store. I know they have some bins full of various hardware, and I think they have a nice selection of springs. Looks like it's .285 OD and 225 ID, so 220. Shouldn't be too difficult to find a spring that's got those similar dimensions and just a little bit lighter coil weight. Like I said, I'll probably see if I can find a couple of them that are different spring tensions, and we'll try it and see what we come up with. So this is pretty much tore down where you could take it. Like I said, you can take this apart further, which I have already, and but there's no real need to at this moment, so I'm not gonna run the risk of damaging that piston again in there. So anyway, there you go. There's the teardown of the Umarex Mark IV, Ruger Mark IV, and stay tuned for part 2, improving the trigger and hopefully getting it back together and working again. So but stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day.